Welcome to the Heroes of Fantasy Football Podcast.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Heroes of Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host tonight, Matt High, joined by Joe Capozzi, Rich Kopech, and Chris Felice. On tonight's show, we're going to basically poo-poo on some players. It's not going to be the best time, but, we're talking about our 2024 busts. This is the bust show. So how are we doing tonight, gentlemen?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm ready to go poo-poo, I guess, in your terms.
We're going to get negative, but it's all for a reason. So before we get into the negative side of stuff, I want to think positive. So our quick question for the day is, who is your way too early Super Bowl winner? Chris, let's start with you.
The Ravens. I don't think I have to justify this too much, and I probably just stole it from somebody else here. I'm gonna be honest. So yeah, I don't have to justify that too much. The Baltimore Ravens.
No worries. What about you, Rich?
I'm gonna put my money on the Bengals. I think with a healthy Joe Burrow, we're gonna see a little bit of a revenge. Some fire underneath their passion there. So yeah, I could see them making a run for it. We have just recently seen them get there. So
nice. All right, Joe.
Should I say the New York Giants? And then laugh.
You could if you wanted to.
Did you guys see that video I sent of Daniel Jones missing an easy screen pass?
I did, yeah. I did see that.
I don't even want to watch the season.
It looks all like
the Hard Knocks hype.
We're used to.
I think the Lions can make a run back. I think they're gonna do well in the playoffs, and they could even make it all the way.
I'm going to second that because that was my team. I was going to say the surprise for the Lions.
They look good.
They have a lot of players that stuck around. They still have the same coaching staff. There's a lot of pieces in that offense and on the defensive side of the ball that stayed the same, and I like that. So I'm going it. Let's go Lions. All right, gentlemen, let's dive right into our 2024 busts. We'll try not to be too mean, but we'll see. Rich, why don't we start with you tonight?
All right. So diving right in there, I'm going to say my first bust is Devon Achane, or Achane. And honestly, it's just a little bit of concern that, you have to draft him so highly in this year's draft. I mean, I understand the hype and how much of a great explosive player he can be, but overall, I mean, having him, using up a second round pick, I think for a player that isn't exactly so trustworthy yet per se, I mean, it's definitely raises concern. I mean, the numbers he put up last year, I just don't think are simply sustainable, really. So that plus his size, it's another thing just to add to it. It's historically speaking, we just haven't seen that type of success in a player of that size. So definitely raises another flag there. And ultimately, I mean, we did see already that Raheem Mostert did receive a deal, albeit it's not exactly a blockbuster deal. He still did get one, and he did lead the league last year in rushing touchdowns. The man is still on the team. They drafted a rookie as well. So all of these things together for me are just enough for me to steer clear with him as far as the pick you have to spend for him.
I want to get your thoughts, Joe, because I know I'm kind of with you on Devon Achane. It's more of I'd rather take a shot somewhere else. Now, look, he could come out and absolutely win you the week, but he can also we saw him deal with 3 separate injuries last year, yes, and on a team that also had the coach go to Raheem Mostert every time it meant something. So I'm kind of with you, but what do you guys think, Joe and Chris?
It really depends on like you said, with Mostert there, it's really who's doing well. If they're going to play hot hand, if it's Mostert, then they're going to go with the Mostert. If it's Achane, they go with the Achane. He did look good when he played, but again, the Dolphins have like such good wide receivers in Waddle and Tyreek Hill, and they do throw the ball quite often. So they're not like a run first team in my opinion. So it's really any team that has 2 really good running backs, I'm always nervous on because you never know which one's going to be the guy there. So I can agree with that. He has the potential bust. he has bust potential with Mostert still being there.
What about you, Chris?
I understand it. I actually find Achane to be a little streakier than others in my opinion. I know like last year you didn't see that, but I also don't think that because of the injury, right, we got the full length of everything to see. But obviously there were times where he looked like a monster. I mean, I remember watching that Giants game. I remember watching our entire defense not be able to catch this guy like 3 times. So like he's fast, he's great. The injury kind of proneness makes me a little worried. I also, as Joe said, two running backs, very clearly there. There's obviously a committee going on there. Also, I mean, not for nothing, but that offense is also polarizing. Sorry, on the wide receiver end. That offense is so diverse. I don't see him. I'm getting to that point. I could definitely get the bust sort of pick here, 100%. I don't know if I am 100% in on him busting, but I don't know. That's I'm a little so and so. I'm for and against, 50-50, I should say.
If he was like 205 pounds, I think this wouldn't even be a conversation. It's just because he's a little undersized as a running back in the NFL. But that's really the only major concern. But Joe, why don't we go over to your bust for the 2024 season?
So I'm gonna follow Chris's lead with talking about a running back bust for this upcoming season, and I think that's
Joe
going to be
or Rich? I mean,
or Richie's pick. It's going to be Kyren Williams. I think Kyren Williams is going to be a bust in 2024. He had a great season last season, and then obviously he had that injury, which I don't think is too concerning. But he is a smaller running back. He's a late round pick. The Rams don't have any commitment to him with him being a late pick, and they just picked up a new running back in the draft. So that's also now competition for touches. With him getting hurt so often, I don't think he's going to be the bell cow like he was last season. So they're going to be splitting those touches, and I don't think he's going to be a repeat of what people are expecting him to do in fantasy, and that's going to give him a bust label for me, and he's going to be much lower in my rankings this year. Matt?
Before no, hold on. Before Matt goes, I just want to make sure everyone understands this. I'm dying in the corner over here. No one saw it. If you're on Spotify, I'm sorry, but I was laughing away. Yeah, Matt, go ahead. I want the retort, please.
This is a pick that I strongly disagree with, but I understand the concern. He did get a high ankle sprain last year, but so did a lot of other people, and they were fine. I get with Kyren Williams, he was a late round pick. I agree with that.
Didn't he also break something in his hand?
I don't believe so.
I thought he did.
He didn't miss any time for that, though. It might have been like
just another injury, though.
I know, but we're talking. That's not the way the offense runs. It's going to be Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, and Kyren Williams. They don't have anybody else. I understand they just drafted their another running back.
Blake Corum?
Blake Corum. Yes. He's an undersized back as well. Yes, he was a 3rd round pick, but Sean McVay offenses always like to use a single running back. They just haven't had one since Todd Gurley. They tried to give it to Akers, and he kept fumbling that opportunity away. Last year, they gave it to Kyren Williams, and he ran with it. No pun intended or pun intended. We'll see. But I think Kyren Williams is going to end up being a value. But I understand the bust potential with a late round running back on a team with injury concerns. So someone else can
Blake Corum is going to take those. Sorry, because Blake Corum's going to take those early touches away from.
No way.
Yes, he will. Kyren Williams is now the passing down back on a team that has Cooper Kupp and Puka and Tyler Higbee. So they're going to be looking to throw the pass.
Higbee's on pup. He ain't playing this year.
Okay. They're going to be looking to throw.
I want you guys to know how hard it is for Matt to not turn this podcast to PG-13 so fast. I want all of you to realize that. Richie, what are your thoughts?
Well, quite simply, after absorbing all of that from you all, I really have to say that I do side with Joe. I am a little concerned about Kyren Williams myself. Um, Not saying that I don't think he's going to get the work, but I think I just worry about the usage, the volume there. You know, I mean, Blake Corum, I kind of watched a little bit of his tape there in college, and overall, I mean, I do think that he's going to work his way into some sort of role there. You know, and I think it's yet to be seen how this Rams offense is actually going to run. There are question marks, you know, between can Cooper Kupp still do what he did? Can Puka repeat his rookie season? I mean, you know, these are all question marks still to me that I haven't exactly seen or kind of, you know, further, you know, kind of got through and understood, you know, the other side of it to it. But honestly, I don't know. I'm just gonna say, yeah, no. As far as the other running backs that are around that ADP, I'm gonna kind of go that way instead of Kyron.
I'll put my 2 cents in before we go. I'm gonna say this. I wouldn't say this is a complete and total bust. I think he's might be a tiny bit overvalued. I have his ADP at pick number 17 overall. I think it's a little too high, in my personal opinion.
Way
I'm
too
not going to
high.
go with complete and total bust though, because that would imply that he would not even be in my roster at a certain point during the season. I don't ever anticipate that happening. I would argue he's at least a wide receiver 2, perhaps a high-end wide receiver 2 to that extent. But if you're drafting at pick 17, that's sorry, running back. My apologies. Completely wrong position. My apologies.
Well, he's a wide
Running
It's
back.
receiver
okay.
because
He's
he's the pass catching running back. So
But yeah, going. Wow, there's a lot going on here. But yeah, short and sweet. I just think he's slightly overvalued. I don't think it's full bust. I'm gonna side with not a full bust. Just lower expectations a bit.
I'm so sorry, Kyron. I love you. I hope you are on my team everywhere because then we can really crush
that'd be
people.
great because then
So,
you'd lose in every league.
it's fine. We'll see. We'll
Dude,
see.
We're gonna
Dude,
move
take
on.
him
We're gonna
over.
move on. We're gonna move on. We're gonna move on.
All right.
All right, Chris. Let's
Yeah.
jump into yours.
I'm about to have it also very a volatile pick. Here, Jahmyr Gibbs is my first candidate. Yeah, I know, right? Yeah. So let me explain. How I'm viewing this. Okay, I understand it's a little out of left field. I totally get that, but I've also seen the script, and I'm just gonna say that Matt, you also are there. So he is currently projected to be drafted at pick number 14. Overall, I feel as if that's a little high for the crowded offensive room that he is going to be in. I don't ever anticipate him ever reaching that ceiling. I understand that he's a fantastic running back, and this is nothing against him. I actually don't even think he's bad. I think he's actually really good. I think that he's going to. I mean, we went over it before with Detroit possibly in the Super Bowl. I would love for that to happen. I think it's very possible. He could be a very crucial piece, but I think they all could. There's a lot of mouths to feed on the offense alone, right? I don't anticipate him ever reaching that height. I would argue that this is probably like around a 4th-round pick, in my opinion, for when you should be picking him. I don't know why he's valued so high when he's also sharing backfield with David Montgomery, who will most likely get those like 3rd down carries and also most likely all those touchdown carries. I get he can catch the pass, but so can like 4 other players on the team who are in wide receiver and also tight end positions. So while I understand that's a bit out of left field, I hope the logic makes sense that like I don't think you're ever going to get the value picking him at pick 14 than you would other players in that area. I hope that makes sense, and that's why I think he'll be a bust in that regard.
I am going to disagree again, but it's fine. That's why we have differing opinions. That's why there's more than just one of us. Because obviously, then Kyren Williams would be the first overall pick. But hey, I think it comes down to injury, and if this offense is really that good, Dan Campbell does like to run the ball, and that should be most likely David Montgomery's role in this offense. But Gibbs, in my projections, I have him getting, close to 100 targets in this offense as well. I think he's going to be heavily utilized in the passing game, which is what elevates him for me. But I do understand being in a crowded backfield. But, we do see sometimes these things just work. So what do the rest of you guys think?
I see where Chris is coming from. It's the same argument that all these other running backs we've had is they're sharing. It's a committee. You don't know who's going to get the touchdown, which equals the 6 fantasy points for your team. So it all depends on who's getting the touches near the goal line, who's getting the first look. If they're going to run committee, is it going to be this player's doing well? Let's keep letting him run the ball. So many factors. It all depends on how it plays. I do think that I like Gibbs more than Achane, because Tua has a lot more offensive weapons in the air, in my opinion, in down there in Miami than we have. Goff, don't get me wrong, Goff's a great quarterback, but he has Laporta, and then he's got Amon-Ra. Jamison Williams, not really exciting me, and Taylor Decker is a good front line, but I don't know. I like the Lions line a lot, so I think they are going to run the ball way more than the Dolphins do, and I do think that Gibbs should. Even if they are a committee, I think he's going to be relevant. What about you, Rich? What do you think?
I think you guys are crazy. Jahmyr Gibbs is definitely very high for me. Honestly, if you're looking at it, he's understanding he's like right now ranked as the running back 4.
6 I have here.
Okay.
On Fantasy
All right.
Pros.
So and players that are above him are like Christian McCaffrey, Bijan, Breece Hall, Jonathan Taylor, possibly Saquon Barkley or Kyren Williams, the way you're looking at it. And then at that point, it starts getting sketchy, And I mean, even like we just mentioned, Kyren Williams can be potentially a bust. So players like Travis Etienne are available there. Pacheco, Achane is there. So is Jacobs, as you kind of round out the third round, or kind of what's available on the board after Gibbs, if you're not taking Gibbs. So realistically, I mean, I'm going to pick Gibbs every time over any of those players. Detroit does have the best offensive line in football, so that is something not to snuff at. And also, I understand that there's a lot of mouths to feed. Amon-Ra will get his, but I think that David Montgomery is going to be getting phased out, as he is kind of on the older side, is on the running back timeline there. And Jahmyr is fresh. He's explosive. And I mean, from what we saw last year, anytime I versed him, I hated it. So I'm not going to miss out on that this year. You know what I mean? The Lions are definitely contenders for the Super Bowl. They're a great offense overall. I love it. I'm in on Jahmyr Gibbs for sure.
All right, I'm gonna dive into mine because I have another one here. My bust for the 2024 season is going to be none other than Josh Jacobs, on the Green Bay Packers. He's currently going as the RB12, 39th overall, which is an early 4th round pick. Now, he's a pretty polarizing player so far in 2024. Joins the Packers, and I think all of us here expect good things from this Packers offense, with Jordan Love being in the second year of his starting career as a quarterback. Last season, looking at Josh Jacobs coming off a really down year, he had a yards per carry of 3.45 yards, which is really, really bad. That's worse than Zeke, Austin Eckler, Javonte Williams, Cordero Patterson, Elijah Mitchell. I don't want to go on because it's getting real scary, but right now, then we look at what the Packers have done. They added Marshawn Lloyd to the backfield with a 3rd round pick this year. And they also re-signed A.J. Dillon. Now, before you say anything, I know A.J. Dillon is pretty much garbage as far as what is now on the Packers. He might not even make the team, but despite that, he's seen at least 178 carries or more in the last 3 seasons that had Aaron Jones in his prime on this offense. So Marshawn Lloyd, whether you like it or not, he's going to get touches. And if he's going to be more efficient than Dillon, he could be more efficient than Josh Jacobs as well. This could shape up to be a backfield that is more close. It's closer to a committee that you don't want than one you do. And you're drafting a potential committee back as the RB12. And unless he gets like a really insane touchdown spike year or 300 plus carries, I just don't see how he hits this RB12 ADP. Yes, it can happen on this offense if they really are as good as we expect them to be, but it's not something I'm willing to bank on for this season. Am I crazy or no? What do you guys
No,
think?
I actually just want to say that this was my pick, and I wanted to say this, and I saw you had written in the script already. That's where I had to do more thinking, which is very unfortunate. But I completely agree. What do you think, Joe?
I actually disagree. I mean, I love having a running back that's on a team that is the clear-cut guy that's going to see the touches. Even if the team's bad, he's still going to get looks, and he's going to get even if it's like 4 or 5 garbage yards every down. That's still fantasy points that's adding up on your team. Um, as you said, AJ Dillon is terrible. He hasn't been good in a while, and you have Marshawn Lloyd, who's not even in training camp right now because he has a hip injury. I still think that Josh Jacobs is way better. He has more experience. He's going to be the lead down running back, and Marshawn Lloyd is going to be the RB2 in that offense. But last year, Jordan Love looked great. I loved the Green Bay offense. They looked really good. Richie's favorite wide receivers over there that he talks about frequently. So I'm in on Josh Jacobs. Richie, what do you think?
See, I was actually going to compliment saying that I think that I have to agree with Matt. I'm not, I mean, like so because I'm not exactly out, but I'm thinking that this is going to be more of an air raid type of attack, due to the fact that they have a great wide receiver room, complemented by none other than Mr. Wicks. But it's I think in Jordan Love just is that guy. I mean, he threw for I think it was the second most passing touchdowns in the league or something like that last year, if I'm not mistaken, or somewhere at least in the top 3 or 4. So definitely can do it. We've seen it, and yeah, that's why I don't really have faith in Mr. Jacobs.
Okay.
We got to start calling. We need a nickname for Dontavian Wicks because it's going to come up.
I don't think there
this
needs to be a
year.
nickname. That's just it right there.
The Candle Man.
Oh,
all right.
off
I like
that.
it. I like it. All right. Why don't we dive into the next one here?
You want to start us off, Matt? Let's hear another crazy take.
No, hold on. I want Rich to go.
You want Rich to go?
Yeah, I want Rich to go.
All right. So my second bust is Nico Collins. And it's kind of over a couple different things. Really, it starts off with kind of the same approach to the running backs being a little too high. I think right now, who was a fantasy darling last year when you got him so late, now you have to spend up to get him this year. So with that, it's just not somebody that I think I'd have on my fantasy team when I have other players like Jalen Waddle, Chris Olave, Brandon Ayuk still on the board, Garrett Wilson as well, depending on how you're looking at it. Even though some people may not agree, we'll find out later on the show. But yeah, so with it comes down to the couple of additions like Stephon Diggs coming on, right? So that's something that's gonna take away targets from Nico Collins, and ultimately Tank Dell that we saw emerge last year. Granted, he got hurt. I think is really the wide receiver one on the team. So there was a stat I was looking at that was saying that in the 7 games that when they played together, Nico and Tank Dell, Tank Dell actually averaged more fantasy points per game than Nico. So, and a couple other stats with that. So really it's a boil down of just who I think the wide receiver one really is. And ultimately we still have to see CJ Stroud kind of do that sophomore step where some people refer to as sophomore slump. So there are people out there already kind of worried about CJ Stroud and his production this year. And I'm kind of on that team. So, I mean, until further notice, I'm kind of avoiding that. I'd rather take my chances on the other wide receivers later on.
What do you think, Joe?
It's tough to say. I see where Richie's coming from. There's a lot of mouths to feed over there in Houston. You got Diggs, you got Tank Dell, and now you have Nico Collins also. I think Diggs coming in there is going to be the wide receiver one. He's just too good of a player to not be, in my opinion. And if I had to pick between Nico Collins and Tank Dell, I think I'm leaning Tank Dell, honestly. He looked really good last year. So that leaves Nico Collins as the wide receiver 3, who arguably is talented enough to be the wide receiver 1. But you can't get everyone to get the ball. Not to mention they're going to run the ball also. It's a lot of mouths to feed. We don't know how it's going to look with Diggs there. I kind of see Richie's point. I wouldn't say he's a complete bust, but like he has the bust potential, especially where you're taking him in drafts, which is kind of early for his role there. Like I could see Diggs being early, but Nico Collins and Tank Dell, who's going to be that wide receiver 2? It's really hard to tell. So for me, definitely the bust potential is there, and I can see where Richie's coming from.
Yeah, and just to step in real quick, like all these players, we're not saying they're going to be bad. We're not saying they're going to suck. It's just it depends on where you have what investment you need to put into them. Is it going to be worth it? You can draft someone at the RB12, and if he finishes at the RB15, that's a bust because he didn't give you what you wanted. But if you draft a guy like we did a value episode, if you draft a guy in the 5th round and he turns out to be a top 12 or top 24 pick at the position, those are the guys that we're going to try to target, and these are guys we're trying to fade away a little bit. So, Chris, what do you think about Nico Collins here?
I also wanted to say Nico Collins, so I'm make sure it's clear. But I completely agree. You see, stuff like this scares me because of just how many like all 3 receivers are as like good enough to be wide receiver 1. And this is like a very horrible draft strategy in my opinion, but sometimes you have to. If you draft one of these receivers, you have to make the investment if you can to draft another one. I did that last year in a league, and I got Christian Kirk and Calvin Ridley, and that kind of worked out for me a little bit. But this time there's 3, and you're not going to get all 3. So yeah, this one scares me a lot, just because there's like I feel like I'm gambling, and in reality, I'd rather have more definitive percentages when I'm trying to draft somebody of like where they're going to stand on the team than take a chance at somebody. This isn't like the time of old where the only other time I've seen this work was Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, and Antonio Brown under Tom Brady. That worked a little bit to an extent. You could play all 3 of those players in a flex spot or wide receiver 2, depending on who they were, and you could have been fine. Right? You could have been okay. I'm not sure if that's going to work out this way. It's a little scary. So for that, yeah, I'm gonna have to agree.
All right, I'm gonna go next because I'm gonna jump in here. This one might be a little bit might rub you the wrong way, and I apologize, but I'm gonna do it anyway.
Please.
So my other bust is going to be Garrett Wilson, currently the wide receiver 8 off the board and 11th overall. So you're paying late first for him right now. Now, this has nothing to do about his talent. I agree. He's incredibly talented. But I think right now the fantasy community is just buying too much into this quarterback upgrade and not weighing the cons as much as I think they should. So would it surprise you to hear that Aaron Rodgers, on his final year as a Packer, he averaged only 15 fantasy points per game? Now, compare that to Zach Wilson's 11.4. Yeah, it's better, but not by that much. Only 3.5 points or so more. Now, Wilson has had over 1,000 yards in each of his first 2 seasons in the NFL, and that has come with subpar quarterback play. That itself is an accomplishment, but his touchdowns have been severely capped. He has 7 in his career, and that's it. He still demands a ton of targets. He's had 139 and 163 in his first 2 campaigns, and he's also exceeded a 24% target per route run rate, which is very, very high. I am projected for increases across the board with Aaron Rodgers coming in, but he's still barely a top 12 wide receiver for me. And right now, it's going to take just an insane increase in efficiency. It's going to take double-digit touchdowns to that everyone's kind of banking on already. And I'm not willing to bet on a 40-year-old quarterback coming off of an Achilles tear to support a first-round draft pick. And I understand this could come back to bite me. This could be a 100% a fooled you moment looking back in next year when we recap the 2024 season. But I'm just not willing to put in that investment. I'm staying on the outside. I'll take a couple other guys ahead of him just to be a little risk averse, in my opinion. What do you guys think? I feel like this one I'm going to have a little bit more disagreements with. But
we all know that Matt hates wide receiver ones, so it makes sense that this because
I hate wide receiver ones as much as you hate running back RB ones. So,
well, not small ones that get hurt and have backups drafted for them, but I think that Garrett Wilson is going to do fine. I think compared to Zach Wilson, Aaron Rodgers is light years above him. You say he did poor the last season in Green Bay, but this is also a Green Bay offense that was not helping Aaron Rodgers at all. They didn't draft him almost any wide receivers for how many years was he asking for one? They got rid of Adams, his best weapon, and so I don't blame him for wanting to move. And I think if he stayed healthy with the Jets, with Brees Hall on their back, and then you got the weapons at wide receiver he does, I think the Jets could be a pretty decent team. And even if they don't do well, having a wide receiver one on any team is good for fantasy football because they get the targets. Targets equal catches, catches equals points, points equals wins. But
quick math.
That's just me. Richie, what do you think?
I think that if you have the last pick in the first round and you have the snake there, I think it's very wise, or it would make me feel much better if I did have that pick to take a wide receiver one from another team and then to swerve it around and then grab Garrett Wilson. This way, you still have a solid wide receiver one in the accident or in the case that, the unimaginable for the Jets happens. So, but ultimately, I do worry with what could happen there. So, I think I also steer away from Garrett Wilson.
It's 100% the touchdowns. That's the main thing. He hasn't got him yet, and
100% Aaron Rodgers. Yeah. If Aaron Rodgers stays healthy, Garrett Wilson has a good season, a very good season, and is worth the return. No Aaron Rodgers, mucho problema.
What about you, Chris?
Yeah, so I wanna state something really fast that you kind of said before, and it's gonna be backtracking a little bit. I would like to argue the definition of the term bust. I would like to argue this mostly because I don't agree with the fact that if you draft X person at what's it called, let's say you drafted wide receiver 12th overall and that person ends up, I don't know, going 14th, over in the season. I don't think that's a bust at all. There's always variance in what you're drafting for. That's why you keep drafting into the later rounds to, compensate for your variance. So in this case, right, I see your notes here. You have him as your wide receiver 12, and you're sorry. Your ADP is and his ADP is at 8. I would argue that wouldn't be much of a bust to me. That's fine. Yeah, sure. In a 10-man league, that would probably mean he's in the second round, but others that's still a first round pick. I don't know. I wouldn't say, and I would value him at the same area. And I feel like if I used a first round pick and he ended up being wide receiver 12, and the other vice versa happens if my second round pick, who may also be a wide receiver, also ends up as the in wide receiver 1 territory, that's fine with me. I'm okay with that. That is something that I'm allowed to live with. So I don't think it's a bust at all. I think that's fine with me personally.
I'm just looking at him. So Rich had to go, so we get out of here, sir.
So long, Rich.
Yeah. So I'm just looking at.
Can't take this wide receiver one slander anymore.
I know. Yeah. But looking at where he's going, right around him, Garrett Wilson, Jahmyr Gibbs, Saquon Barkley, Marvin Harrison Jr., Devontae Adams, Kyren Williams, Chris Olave. There's a couple of those guys I would take over him right now, just because of the way I statted players out and stuff. So I'm just saying it's not just me, but it could just be the way I'm doing it. But it's just the way I try to do it is stay away from a little bit of risk, in especially in the first round, which is where he's being drafted. So. All right, why don't we jump to the next guy?
I'll go. I think you have a good segue too, because my second guy happens to also be Chris Olave. Now,
You just hate
this.
my team, man.
So, okay, do you know of Jahmyr Gibbs? Do you?
No, this episode is basically just about
Oh,
players on
yeah,
my
okay.
team.
Hey, your
Okay.
team sucks, Matt.
In my defense, right, I I have two reasons for this. I'm going to be straight up blunt and honest here. So I'm looking at how a sleeper is defining certain things. So I'm going to count really fast. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So he's
Come
currently
for the
ranked.
fantasy, stay for the math.
Yeah. The wide receiver 9. So he's above like Deebo Samuel, Drake London, Mike Evans, Devontae Adams, Brendan Ayuk, DK Metcalf, DJ Moore, Amari Cooper, Nico Collins. We've always said it could be a bust. Jalen Waddle, who you love apparently. Matt High.
I do.
Cooper Kupp, Marvin Harrison Jr., Devonta Smith, T. Higgins, who I know Joe despises, Christian Kirk, Stephon Diggs, stuff like that. I gotta be honest with you. One, Derek Carr is just not good. 2.
Yeah, but Taysom Hill.
True. 2, I hate to be the guy, but is it wrong of me to say, is the Chris Olave experiment really worth it to this point? Like, is he going to be the guy? Like, is there enough time? Has enough time passed to actually have this discussion? I'm concerning because, like, last year, 19th, the year before that. Sorry, I'm talking about wide receiver ranking, by the way. Finished among 19. Year before that, 25. I mean, I know Derek Carr is possibly the reason Alvin Kamara exists, but is there a reason why he's not getting used? Should we be valuing him this high? He's still there. Is this? I don't know. I don't like him at all. Like, at all. If I see him, I'm drafting anyone else but him in that area, almost if I get him like a really good deal. I'm sorry, I know you really like him. I'm not trying to mash on your team. I really, really am not. I'm just letting you know that in every single redraft league that I do this year, there's a very good chance that Olave does not end up on any one of them. I don't trust the offense. I don't trust Derek Carr, and there's a part of me that really doesn't trust him either. Matt, what do you think? Go ahead and retort me, please.
I agree. A lot of it is quarterback play. Derek Carr has been the bane of my existence, especially last season, for multiple reasons. But just think back to last year, and with Derek Carr, do you all remember when he overthrew Olave like 7 yards into the sideline and then was yelling at him? Like that's how it was. It was very frustrating last year. And look, I love Chris Olave, but even in my rank, because I just pulled him up, I have him at the wide receiver 16. So I agree. I think he's being drafted a little bit high. What's his ADP right now?
Yeah, I do have it here actually. He is ADP 21. That definitely should be around. I would go for like around ADP 35 to 40.
In PPR, he's 12.
12?
So he's the wide
12.
receiver. Yeah, wide receiver 11 and half PPR scoring. So, but 18th overall. So
you would have to kill me before I draft him 12th overall.
I agree.
Wide
I think he's
receiver 12, not overall.
Oh, thank God.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
I think
okay.
he's
misunderstood.
I agree with you. I think he has the potential to bust, but in some of these, I think as well, he has the opportunity to also be a value. Just because if Derek Carr doesn't do Derek Carr things like he did last year. I think Chris Olave has an opportunity to demand the most targets because who else is taking the targets away? Shaheed.
Kamara.
I don't think Kamara is getting 17 targets in a game like he was getting last year, just because Derek Carr is like, whoop, throw the ball. I don't want to touch it anymore. So I think that this team is going to be a little bit different. So I don't think they're going to be doing that as much. And Olave, I think, has a chance to break through a little bit of that. But I agree. I think he's being drafted a little bit too high for me. I love him, but I don't think I would be comfortable. If I'm not comfortable drafting Garrett Wilson, I'm not comfortable drafting Chris Olave at that point either.
Joe, what do you think?
The wide receiver one slander.
I know.
No,
I know
but
you like
this one I feel is a little more justified because Matt's is based off of if Aaron Rodgers gets hurt, which could happen. He is older and injury prone. This one is just because Derek Carr is not very good anymore, and it makes it a little more acceptable to me. I do still think he's the wide receiver one there and has little to no competition for targets, which in PPR and even half PPR makes me a little more comfortable in taking him. Is who else is Spencer Rattler or Derek Carr or Taysom Hill going to throw the ball to? Kamara's on a check down or no. Okay. So
Cedric Wilson.
oh
Alvin
yeah, great.
Kamara. Alvin
Great.
Kamara.
So it makes me a little more comfortable taking him in a PPR to half PPR league. That being said, I do think Derek Carr has been struggling, and that does raise concerns as a bust potential tag. Will the Saints be terrible, or are they going to do okay enough for a player to get fantasy points? So that's the real concern.
I just want to. Sorry, I really, really don't mean to beat up on you, Matt, but I have to ask. I scrolled down here. I can see drafted in 2022 by Matt M High, with the 1.05. Do you feel like you've gotten value from that pick?
Based on that draft class, yes. I do think I've gotten value.
Who else was in that draft class?
Jameson Williams, Garrett Wilson was in that draft class. A couple other.
I actually now I want to see what that was.
So yeah, based on that year, that wasn't that the Brees Hall year, I believe. So that was a little bit more running back heavy and stuff. But yes, I think at that cost, I think I got a return. He is a young wide receiver on what should be hopefully an okay offense at best. If Derek Carr, again, this might just be a Derek Carr take for me, but I do think Chris Olave is a pretty talented wide receiver, and I do think he has that potential. But why don't we jump into the next one here, our final bust.
I swear this isn't the beat down Matt High show.
I'm just going to rename the episode.
I knew this.
Swear,
I literally knew this.
If this is him,
my bust. No, it's not who you think it is.
Say it.
I told you I wouldn't. My bust is Jordan Addison. He is
actually that one I like.
He's a wide receiver 2 on a team with arguably the best wide receiver in the league on the team, as well as Hawkinson, who is one of the top 5 tight ends in the league. And you're going to have Sam Darnold be the starting quarterback fighting against an unproven rookie, J.J. McCarthy, who couldn't beat Sam Darnold in training camp to win the job. That doesn't excite me for a fantasy season with a player who's being drafted as the wide receiver 47. Granted, that's still pretty far down, and I could see you taking a shot on him, but here's some players that I would much rather getting drafted later than him. Khalil Shakir, drafted wide receiver 54. You have Jahan Dotson, wide receiver 63. You have Polk, who arguably is the only good wide receiver on New England, wide receiver 65. And the list goes on with just people I'd rather have than to take the shot on Jordan Addison as the wide receiver 2 on a team that just got they just got Aaron Jones over there, right? On the Vikings, who Aaron Jones looked great last year. He looks like he's young still, even though he's older, and he's still playing well. And anything's an upgrade than what the Vikings had last year for running back. So I think he's going to do well. I think they're going to be running the ball way more than they did last year, which means less throwing. And they also don't have Kirk anymore, so that also means less throwing. And when they do throw, it's going to be with Sam Darnold or JJ. And they're probably going to throw it to Hawkinson or JJ over Addison. That's just my opinion. I think
agree.
he's being overvalued for his situation. Not saying Addison's a bad player. He's just on a team with too many mouths to feed, and he has unproven quarterback play. So that is why I'm giving him the bust label.
Hey, Matt, where did you get Jordan Addison from?
I traded for him last year.
From who?
From the the gentleman that just gave the
Oh,
bust.
from
Yeah.
Joe? Oh, that's
I agree
crazy.
for this season. I agree for this season. He's especially with all the things going on. Like he seems a little bit like a knucklehead off the field, which causes some issues. But talent wise, I think he's good. Yes, well, that's
so. Yeah. And he gets suspended. He's gonna get suspended for some games. So that's even. I forgot about that. I did this without knowing.
You're welcome.
Yeah, definitely.
Breaking news.
Bust. Stop.
I would like to before I weigh in on this, I would like to apologize to Matt. You're right. Yeah, you definitely got the value at that 105. Yeah, this class was just not great. Your only other options were Drake London and Garrett Wilson, and I would argue Garrett Wilson was the only obviously, yeah, sure, but I don't think taking Olave there was a bad choice at all. So no, I would like to apologize. Definitely the correct choice there.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about that draft anymore.
Yeah, that draft definitely.
That was a bad one.
I took Burks at 1.3. So
you got Breece Hall though.
I did get Breece Hall. That pick.
Got Breece Hall at 101. I mean, can't be too mad. Anywho.
Breece Hall, or is this about Burks?
No. This is Breece Hall.
Breece Hall is great.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm gonna weigh in on this now. I completely agree. I'm not a huge fan of the got the young quarterback who's definitely going to try and probably use JJ as a crutch as much as humanly possible, as he's definitely the guy that will be probably the easiest to throw to. It doesn't matter if he gets double teamed. That's just how that works. So yeah, I agree. I 100% agree.
All right. Well, those are our 2024 bust picks. Obviously, there were a couple disagreements, but we would love to hear what the listeners have to say.
80% on Matt's team.
I'll post my team on the.
I'll post my team.
Just look through there and be like,
team Bust Incorporated.
Bust. Yeah, we'll see. Or they'll be the best team in football this year, which is what I'm hoping for. But we'll see. So let us know.
I'm literally right here. The trophy is in the background. It's right there.
That was last year's trophy. I'm talking about next year's trophy, buddy. It's coming home with me.
It's not. Richie was also here.
What was the name on the very first year?
First year? That was 6 years ago.
All victories. It does not matter how old the victory is.
Past is done and over with, corn boy. Shout out to anyone who understands that reference.
I think I just need to fill in the listeners on not only do I think Matt's team's not very good right now, but he does not have any first round draft picks next year. He does not have any first round draft picks also in 2025. And do you have any in 2026? No. You also do not have any first round draft picks in 2026. So you're going the next 3 years with 0 first round draft capital with 80% of the players we just picked for this bus show.
And I'm also in talks with trying to trade away my 2027 first as we speak. So
wow,
going all in.
I'll let you know how it works out. I don't think your team is bad. I just think it's very shaky. Is all I'm gonna say. I feel like it's high risk, high reward. I feel like if certain things don't work out, you just don't have a complete team. I think you have plenty of great players. I just think there are holes that for supplementary points that need to be fixed. But that's we don't gotta talk about that right now.
We'll let the season decide.
I'm okay with that.
As always, please like, share, subscribe, follow the show. We are on X at the Heroes FF. You can follow us along. We're on everywhere you get your podcasts. So again, I will post my team on my X at Matt High, so you can see basically all of everyone's bust picks because they just decided to pick on me today. It's all right. It's all right. I got thick skin. It's fine. But until next time, everyone, so long.
Thank you again for tuning in to another episode of the Heroes of Fantasy Football podcast. Follow us on Twitter at the Heroes FF.